In 1857, a massive and bloody rebellion tore across the Indian subcontinent. The uprising forced the British East India Company to collapse, prompting the British Crown to take direct control of the region in 1858. Queen Victoria publicly promised her new subjects equal obligations of duty, but the actual priority was security. The British immediately re-engineered the military, disbanding native regiments that had rebelled and structuring the army to prevent future uprisings. To maintain order over hundreds of millions of people, a tiny British elite relied on a proxy system. They allied with local rulers and landlords, guaranteeing their territories in exchange for loyalty, which allowed the Crown to indirectly govern 565 independent princely states. The British designed the Raj as a highly militarized, bureaucratic framework engineered with one primary goal: absolute control over the subcontinent. To extract value from that control, the British built a massive infrastructure. By the early 20th century, India possessed the fourth largest railway network in the world, funded entirely by Indian taxpayers. The rail network functioned as a giant conveyor belt. It was designed to pull raw materials like cotton and wheat from the deep inland and transport them directly to major coastal ports for export to Great Britain. This bar chart tracks the economic blowback. As finished, machine-made goods from Britain flowed back into India along those same rails, local industries were decimated. Indian producers went from dominating their own markets to manufacturing barely a quarter of local textile consumption. This forced economic dependency on British imports created a profound systemic friction that guaranteed an eventual massive resistance. To run their sprawling colonial bureaucracy, the British cultivated a Western-educated Indian middle class. However, as these professionals studied British political philosophy, they quickly recognized the inherent hypocrisy of the system they were being paid to manage. In 1885, 70 of these professionals gathered in Bombay to form the Indian National Congress. This was the first organized political body in the country, initially attempting to peacefully debate British policy and request a voice in governance. In 1905, Viceroy Lord Curzon arbitrarily divided the massive Bengal province into two distinct administrative zones. The local populace viewed the partition as an overt punishment for their political assertiveness, and the resulting outrage moved the resistance toward more aggressive tactics. The Swadeshi movement encouraged millions to boycott British goods entirely. Protesters refused foreign textiles and lit massive bonfires of British cloth in crowded city streets. To counter this unified pushback, the British granted separate electorates for Muslims. This strategy fractured the opposition and laid the legal groundwork for the Muslim League to operate as a separate political entity from the Congress. Every attempt by the British to forcefully manage the populace only fueled faster, more organized nationalistic pushback. When World War I broke out, 1.5 million Indian soldiers served the British Empire across the Middle East and Europe. Many supported the war effort with the expectation that their loyalty would lead to significant steps toward self-rule. Instead, the British government passed the Rowlatt Act in 1919. This legislation shockingly extended strict wartime emergency powers into peacetime, allowing the government to imprison political dissidents without trial. Tensions peaked in the city of Amritsar, where British troops fired into a trapped gathering of unarmed men, women, and children at Jallianwala Bagh. The hundreds of deaths ended any remaining belief that the Crown intended to rule through partnership. In the immediate aftermath, Mahatma Gandhi rose to prominence. He deployed Satyagraha, a nationwide campaign of nonviolent non-cooperation, bringing millions of citizens into the streets. The events of 1919 pushed the independence movement out of elite political circles and directly into the streets, creating a nationwide mass movement that the British could no longer contain. 2 decades later, the British Viceroy unilaterally declared war on India's behalf for World War II, committing the subcontinent's resources without consulting any local political leaders. The Indian National Congress responded with the aggressive Quit India movement, demanding the total and immediate withdrawal of the British administration. The British arrested tens of thousands of Congress leaders to crush the protests, which forced them to lean heavily on the Muslim League for wartime political support. Muhammad Ali Jinnah used this power vacuum to consolidate the Muslim League's influence. He pushed the two-nation theory, demanding Muslim-majority areas become independent sovereign states. The global war successfully saved the British homeland, but it exhausted the Crown's treasury. By 1945, Britain simply lacked the financial capacity to maintain its hold on the subcontinent. By 1946, the British government faced military mutinies, a restless population, and economic ruin. The newly elected Labour government realized they had to abandon the subcontinent immediately. The final viceroy, Louis Mountbatten, advanced the timeline for the transfer of power, leaving his administration less than 6 months to dismantle a 90-year empire. This map shows the outcome of that rushed exit. A jagged line was aggressively drawn through the provinces of Punjab and Bengal, instantly splitting the landmass into 2 sovereign dominions, a secular Hindu-majority India and a Muslim-majority Pakistan. These poorly planned borders triggered catastrophic communal violence. Between 250,000 and 500,000 people died, and millions more were forced to flee their ancestral homes to cross the new borders. The British Raj lasted for less than a century, but its legacy, a rewired economy, Western administrative frameworks, and the violently scarred borders of South Asia, continues to define the geopolitics of the region today.